Hello everyone! So I made this stray miniature a little while ago, and since I have so many of these jars I wanted to make another miniature, I was thinking the house from Slime Rancher. So let's get into it. I start off by taking some red clay and then rolling it down flat. This is going to be the ground. After getting it as flat as I want, I take the lid and measure it out. Well, cut it out. This is just how I measure it for the inside of the container. Once it's actually in, I take a rock and just squish it onto the clay for the rock texture. For the actual house, I'm going to use the bottom part of one of these Easter eggs. I was looking for like a half circle and I didn't have any plastic ornaments, so I figured this would be the next best thing. I squish it down onto the clay just to get the indentation so that when I actually put the house in here, it stays. Then I paint on some of the more rock color, I guess? The color from the game, just dry brushing it on. Now to start working on the actual house. I take a little worm of clay and squish it onto the front for the front door. Then I spread out the top of it once it's on. And once I got that all smoothed down to my liking, I set the project aside and then didn't touch it for another 9 months. According to my footage, this is when I started. Anyway, getting back to it in the present, I realized that the door was crooked, so I figured I'd cut a little bit off to reposition it, and then the whole thing came off. So instead of just trying to reshape it, I'm just gonna sculpt it again. I'm not gonna explain the process again because you literally just saw it. Once that's dry, I mark out all the little outcrops in Sharpie and then start sculpting them on, like this little back piece that I unfortunately couldn't find a picture of. And I also started this side outcropping. It's this little side piece here on the bottom, just roughing out the shape. Once I got that roughed out, I stick it onto the side of the building and just smooth it out on there. Then after I got that, I take it off and put it aside to dry. I've personally found that this is the best way to make sure it stays on, just to pop it off, let it dry, then glue it back on. So that it stays on, I lean it up against my water cup. Before I can start making the top piece of the side piece, I first have to sculpt on the roof. I didn't do it earlier because I didn't want to accidentally squish anything that I had already done. Then once that's dry, I can actually start on that top piece. It's pretty easy, it's just a little square or a cube that you squish on and then squish in 2 windows. To make the roof, I just roll out some clay really flat and then take the cap of this paint to cut it out. Then I just stick it on the top. For the roof on the little side piece, I just ripped off a piece of clay and sculpted it into the shape before sticking it on. I tried to fill in the indent on the bottom with puppy paint, but it didn't really end up working out, so I just used clay. Now there's a couple windows on the front, which I have to cut out, which I did off screen because like plastic and sharp things. Then I just glued paper to the inside of the house. Or egg. I almost forgot to make the little planter box on the side of the house, so I quickly did that and then just glued it onto the side. For the lamp in the front, I needed to poke a hole through the egg and the clay in order to stick it in, so I just did that with a pin real quick, which was mostly off screen. Then I took the pin out and bent it into shape. I'm gonna paint the little pinhead to be the lamp. Thing for the door handle. I did the same thing for the door handle since the pinhead would be the perfect size. Then on to the decorations. I took a tiny little piece of paper, rolled it up in a little cylinder, and taped it shut. This is going to be one of the pots that goes on the side of the house. For the bench, I took some wire and bent it into the shape of the legs. Then for the top part, I used a piece of paper and just glued that onto them. I did consider using a popsicle stick, but that would be too thick. Before I stuck those on, I painted the house first. It's really all coming together now. I love it when it's like one uniform color and you can really see how everything meshes together. After the base coat, I started with the tannish part on the top. Then I moved on to the orangish yellowish bottom half and painting the trim of the house black. I know you're never gonna see this, but I also painted the inside of the planter brown. And then I mixed up a different brown for both roof colors. And then a slightly darker shade for the door. For the windows, I first put some white in there, again, with my dotting tool. Then I painted them dark blue since that's how they're presented in-game. Along the top of the yellow part, there's a bunch of little triangles. I did paint these on, though I did kind of think about not doing it since they were so tiny, but I gave it a try and it actually turned out really good. For the last little part, the big slime on the side of the house. Then of course I painted the door handle yellow and the lamp black or half black, and then just waited for those to dry and stuck them on. I had to use tweezers to paint the pots. It did not go well. And for the bench too. Well, for the bench I could use my fingers since it was slightly bigger. I used hot glue to stick everything on since I don't think it would have stayed on for anything else to dry. except for the bench, which I didn't use hot glue because it was so thin and the hot glue would have leaked out onto the sides and it wouldn't have looked good. While that dries, I take a piece of foam and cut it into little cubes for the plants. And luckily for me, all the plants are cube-shaped. I just pin it down on a little paper towel and paint him. Then again, using tweezers and hot glue to stick it on. I used some hot glue on the inside of the egg to keep the door handle and the lamppost on, otherwise you'd just be able to pull it off. Then I take it all outside and spray it down with some varnish. Once it's dry, I glue the bottom of it to the inside of the container. Then it's done. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya!